Hi, everyone. Welcome to First and North. My name is Lou Canellis. Joining me this week here on First and North from Fox in Detroit, Jennifer Hammond, from Fox in Milwaukee, Lily Zhao, and from Fox Minneapolis, there's Pierre Nugent. Hi, everyone. 7 teams in the NFL have new head coaches, which means they get a head start with their offseason workout programs. But before I get into that, crew, what a game last night between Houston and Florida to wrap up March Madness. And I'm actually surprised that our Gator grad made it to work today, and she's not in Gainesville still celebrating. Lily Zhao, were you on the edge of your seat with that finish last night?
You know what? My palms were so sweaty. It was crazy. I mean, my heart was racing. It's always fun when you're not invested watching a game like that, but being invested, I just was like, can they come back for a 4th straight time? A phenomenal game. Congrats to the Gators for winning their 3rd basketball championship in school history. Houston was a great team, guys. I know you guys watched the game. A lot of props to the Cougars and their season as well, but what great fight from the Gators to get another championship, their first since 2007.
Yeah, the Gators had a great run throughout the tournament, right?
Yeah, they comeback after comeback. I mean, beat UConn, Texas Tech, and then they go and beat Auburn, the #1 overall seed. So they played some really tough teams to get to the national stage, and fortunately they were able to pay it off and get that national title. So I'm happy they got the natty, guys. It's a great day.
Come on, give us one of the chops, will ya? Nice work there. There we go. All right, let's get it to football now. Bears reported to Hallis Hall yesterday to begin phase 1 of their offseason program. First chance for new head coach Ben Johnson to address the team as a whole alongside his coaching staff.
He said something that, he said, you never forget your first day as a head coach. And, he said it's a great day and, let's get this thing rolling. He jumped out there and, said a bunch of do's, said a bunch of don'ts, said a president of what we're going to be like. Ben, walked in, this morning, flung open the door, made a grand entrance, and then we got to work of him testing us about what we talked about yesterday and things like that. So already first day in and challenging us, and everybody loves a challenge in this sport. It's one of the great things about the sport. Every day is a challenge, and today we got our first one.
I love it. Ben Johnson's already challenging his guys, and Williams is embracing the challenge, exactly what you expect to see from a guy who is supposed to be a generational quarterback, right? And as a rookie, we know that Williams took on all challenges. Defensive linemen who helped take him down for a franchise-high 68 quarterback sacks. And this guy was also challenged having to learn from 2 head coaches, 3 offensive coordinators, and an offensive line in flux all year long. This year, he's got the assistant coach of the year. He's learning from a coach whose offense led football, averaging 33 points a game. And now he has a brand new interior of the offensive line. The Bears trading for Jonah Jackson and also Joe Thuney, and then signing free agent Drew Dolman. Williams has been set up to succeed, and now it is his job to execute. I want to bring back the crew, specifically Pierre Nugent, because, hey, Pierre, locally, Bears also added veteran Case Keenum to the quarterback's room late last week to mentor Caleb Williams. What are the Bears getting in Keenum? He spent some time in Minnesota with the Vikes.
Yeah, he certainly did spend some time here in Minnesota. And not only that, he was part of one of the best plays you'll ever see, not just in Minnesota Vikings history, but in league history, with the Minnesota Miracle between him and Stephon Diggs back in the divisional round against the New Orleans Saints in 2018. He's a guy that is absolutely can be a gunslinger, a guy who can move pretty well in the pocket even at his age, but a guy who is a veteran presence right now. I think that's a great option to have in the quarterback room for Caleb Williams, a guy who can learn from a guy like Case Keenum. 2 different stories here, Lou, between a guy who was drafted #1 overall and Case Keenum, a guy who was drafted, I believe, in the 7th round, or may have even gone undrafted out of Houston. 2 different paths, 2 different careers. Case Keenum has had some success in this league. It's a credit to him for even being in the league still at his age. And Case Keenum, I think, can offer a lot to Caleb Williams in the quarterback room and get him prepared for his 2nd season in the league. So I think this is a great signing for the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, I'm with you. This guy played in an NFC championship game, so he definitely is going to bring some veteran moxie to that quarterback's room that the Bears didn't have last year. Speaking of veteran quarterbacks, Pierre, Aaron Rodgers is waiting. Now, come on. He can't keep putting those Steelers off. He's hurting their feelings. Will you guys make the deal with this guy and bring him back?
Well, it seems right now, no matter if it's Aaron Rodgers or if it's any of the other names you might have seen floated around like Drew Lock or Joe Flacco, it doesn't appear that the Vikings are in a rush to make a move right now. It sounds like they're going to wait until after the draft because there's some stipulations surrounding compensatory picks for them in the future if they sign a veteran quarterback now to their roster. So it doesn't appear that right now the Vikings are incentivized to make a move at the backup quarterback spot until after the draft. So that's when I think the rumors are going to start to swirl around again, whether it's Aaron Rodgers or some of the other guys that they mentioned. Lou, I know you and I haven't had a chance to talk about this extensively. I might be one of the very few individuals that would love to see Aaron Rodgers get signed here in Minnesota. I think it would be a great move. I know that everybody wants to move forward with J.J. McCarthy, but when you look at the roster right now, the way it's built, this is a team that's built to win right now. And even though Aaron Rodgers' best football is probably behind him, I still think there's enough there to potentially help the Vikings this season.
I'm with you. I think it would be a great move by the Vikings. NFL draft just 16 days away. Stay with me here, Jen, because we've heard plenty about how this draft is dominant on both sides of the line of scrimmage, and that's great for the Bears because they need help on both lines of scrimmage. But this draft really depends on which teams value the quarterbacks in the draft. Adam Schefter said the other day that Shedeur Sanders will either go number 9 to New Orleans or number 21 to Pittsburgh. What are your thoughts on this quarterback class?
Well, I think for the quarterback class, it's certainly not as great as it has been in past seasons, but that doesn't mean that somebody isn't going to find their little chunk of gold. There have been a lot of quarterbacks that haven't been high draft picks that have turned out to be very good pros. And I think for the teams that are looking right now, they're going to do whatever they can at all costs to trade up or to make whatever moves they can to get the quarterback that they need. For the Lions, fortunately this year, that is not a problem because there have been many seasons here in Detroit when we've been looking at the quarterbacks and wondering what the heck the Lions were going to do and needing a very high pick and someone to perform right away. But I think it's going to be an interesting way to see how it goes, especially with Sanders being the one that's really coveted there, as you mentioned, around the number 9 spot.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, you guys have nothing to worry about with Goff coming off his best season in the NFL. We saw last season that the Falcons drafted Michael Penix 8th overall. It shocked the NFL world back then. Today, Daniel Jeremiah sat down with Kay Adams and was asked what his biggest surprise was on draft day.
I would say two that come to mind. The first one would be the Mitch Trubisky trade up. We thought that at the time, if I'm not mistaken, I think we thought they were taking Solomon Thomas. And then they took Trubisky, and we were kind of just stunned, like one of those moments where you're kind of speechless. So that was one that stood out.
I just love being kicked around while we're already down after a 5-12 season. Still stings us Bears fans. Were you guys, let me ask you, Lily, were you as stunned as everyone else when the Bears went out and selected Mitchell Trubisky?
I was, but in hindsight, I thought it was a great pick for the Bears. I think Packers fans, the Packers organization, loved having Mitch Trubisky
yeah, I bet they did.
Playing for the Chicago Bears. I mean, I thought he was phenomenal. So, it was definitely shocking. I know there was a lot of talk after the fact about who the Bears could have picked instead of Trubisky and where he is these days and what he wasn't able to do for the franchise. So I think it was a stunning pick, but again, people in Wisconsin loved it. Sorry, Lou.
Yeah, thanks very much, Lou. Let me stay with you because in the Athletics' latest mock draft, I was shocked when I saw this, but I love the idea. Bears trade up all the way to number 2 to pick Abdul Carter, and then they swap picks with the Browns and give up picks 39 and 148 and next year's first-round pick. I think Carter's worth whatever they want. I'm not as worried about the stress reaction in his right foot, and there's not a pass rusher in the draft that I feel is even close to the productivity that this guy's going to give you, at least initially in his rookie season. And frankly, I don't think that the Browns want to carry Myles Garrett's new contract and this guy, even though he's working on a rookie deal, at the same time. But what do you think, Lily? Do you think that Abdul Carter is worth trading up to get like that?
Well, I know Packers fans are going to say, no, don't trade up. You don't need him. You don't need a guy like that in the Bears organization. But obviously, I think it's going to be a good move if Chicago does do that. He provides a lot of value up front for the defense. It's going to be a nasty Chicago defense next season. So I think he adds to the overall pressure up front. I think he would be a great addition to the team. So I say, why not? Yes, there's some injury history there, but if you have a chance to go up and get a really good player that can kind of change the trajectory on one side of the football, why not do that? You have the resources to do it, so go and get them.
And I think that Montez Sweat needs all kinds of help up front. In that same mock draft, Pierre, they have the Vikings being very active in trade talks, have them trading back not once but twice. We know that the Vikings already have limited draft picks. Do you think that they should look to acquire more draft capital out there?
I think it certainly makes sense. If you look at this roster right now, there doesn't appear to be a ton of holes, and you never want to draft for need. You always want to try to draft best player available. So I think right now, yes, it would be in Minnesota's best interest to trade down and acquire more draft capital. I think that's certainly something that Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and his team is looking at of the possibility. And that's obviously going to go all the way up until the night of the draft, I'm sure. No deal has to be made absolutely right now, especially for the 24th overall pick. But I do think that Minnesota is going to look for the opportunity to trade down if somebody wants to come up and potentially get another quarterback. If there's a third quarterback that could possibly be taken in the first round, maybe Jackson Dart, if he's still there at 24, somebody may want to come up and get him. So I think Minnesota can certainly sit there at 24 and wait to see if somebody wants to come up and move down to try to acquire more draft capital. I definitely think that would be a good move for Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and the Vikings.
I want to go around the horn, and if you guys were the team's GM, Jen, I'll start with you. Who are you taking in the draft at 28 for the Lions?
Well, I think the thing that we know about Brad Holmes, as you mentioned earlier, Lou, is that he is a guy that loves to build in the trenches. In the 4 previous drafts since he came here to Detroit, in the very first one, he took Penei Sewell. In the second one, Aiden Hutchinson. So that just gives you a little bit into his mindset. After that, he went to Gibbs and then to Terrion Arnold and got some skill players there. But I think what's most important now is for the Lions to continue to fortify both the offensive and the defensive line. And in Holmes' situation, he's a guy that also loves to deal come draft night. We have seen him make so many moves, and it always feels like the guy you think that they're targeting and looking at, a guy like maybe Mykel Williams or Carter, certainly somebody they could move up and get. There's talk about Atlanta maybe being ripe for a deal with the Lions because they need some draft capital, and the Lions do have 7 picks in this draft. But Brad Holmes loves the element of surprise. He loves to kind of sneak in there and make these moves that no one ever anticipates. And a lot of times he's kind of gotten dinged on it and questioned. I mean, especially when he moved up to get Jamison Williams and when he moved up to take Gibbs. A lot of people have questioned some of the things that Brad Holmes has done, but let me tell you something, everything has turned out pretty well for him. He really is a draft master, and he's the kind of guy that I would put all my trust in to pick the right edge rusher. That is where I would go on draft night because the Lions definitely need that help along the defensive front. It's something that has hurt them throughout the last couple of seasons, and certainly with all of the injuries that they had last year as well, especially to Aiden Hutchinson. It's a position where they need to get some depth.
Jen, I'm not doubting that guy. Brad Holmes is 5 for 5, if I'm not mistaken, in the first round. So you're not going to get me to question that guy. Lily, where are the Packers? What do you think they're thinking right now with their first-round pick?
Yeah, I'm going to kind of say the same thing that Jen did in terms of wanting to win in the trenches. I think Brian Gutekunst, their GM, saw what the Eagles did in that Super Bowl, right? Their ability to protect their quarterback, their ability to get after a quarterback and get after him with 4 guys up front. So I think the Packers have a big need at edge rusher and a big need at cornerback and on the defensive side of the football. But I think in the first round they go and get an edge rusher. They need somebody up front that will bring that pressure so the Packers can get to the quarterback with 4 guys. So I think they go edge rusher. That's a big need for this team. But they could potentially go cornerback. They lost a lot of guys in the offseason. We don't know what Jair Alexander's status will be when the season rolls around. He's still on the team. You're bringing Nate Hobbs from the Raiders. What can he contribute? So I think defense will be the pick that Brian Gutekunst does go with number 23. But I think that sexy pick that fans want, especially in Green Bay, would be at wide receiver. But I think that Javon Walker pick back in 2002 will remain as the last first-round pick for a receiver that the Packers do make. I think they get one in the second round, but I would go edge or corner with that number 23rd pick if they keep it, because again, Goody not afraid to wheel and deal, move it up and down the board if he believes a player is more important if he wants to trade out or trade up.
Pierre, what about the Vikings at 24?
Well, I'm no longer sweating because General Manager Lilly bypassed on the guy that I would be looking at 24 that I would really want for the Vikings, and that's Nick Emanwari. I said his name 2 weeks ago on this show. I think he's the top safety in this class, even over Malachi Starks. Nick Emanwari, I think, is the guy because you have to replace Cam Bynum, who moved on to Indianapolis. Safety is still a position, and you have Harrison Smith, who is long in the tooth, even though he's still playing great football. But you have to think of a plan after Harrison Smith walks out the door. So I think Nick Emanwari makes a lot of sense. Corner is another position I think that this team is going to be looking at. If Jahdae Barron out of the University of Texas is there at 24, I think he could be a possibility as well. And don't sleep on interior of the offensive line. Perhaps Gray Zabel, he could be an option as well at the bottom of the first round if Minnesota stays at 24. But for me, Nick Emanwari is the guy I've had my eye on ever since the draft combine, and I think he would be a good fit here in Minnesota.
All right, guys, and after spending the week with the NFL owners and GMs and coaches and presidents in Palm Beach, I'm telling you, I think with Ben Johnson aboard, and I know that you're with me, Jen, I think this guy is thinking, how can I get Ashton Genty in my Bears lineup and repeat the success I had with Jahmyr Gibbs in Detroit? We need to take a timeout. Is it too early to look at win totals? We're going to see how the NFC North shapes up when we come back here on First and North.
Dr. Larson has no recollection of the last 8 years.
Doc is TV's best new medical drama.
I need to know.
And you can watch it anytime.
I will be a doctor again.
Doc, all new Tuesdays on Fox and watch anytime on Hulu.
Welcome back to First and North. I'm Luke Cadellis at our Fox 32 studios in Chicago, joined by Jennifer Hammond at Fox in Detroit, Lily Zhao, the Gator at Fox in Milwaukee, and Pierre Nugent at Fox Minneapolis. All right, guys, I love having fun like this, even though we haven't even hit the NFL draft yet. So let's have a good time with this because DraftKings came out with their season win total for each team in the upcoming 2025 season. Now, the Lions won 15 games last season. According to DraftKings, their season total is set at 10.5. That's a significant drop-off. Vikings had 14 wins last season. Their total is set at 8.5 in 2025. That's the biggest drop in the NFL. Packers are at 9.5. And last but not least, the Bears. The only team to get a bump in the NFC North, but you have nowhere else to go when you're the Bears because you were at rock bottom with 5, and DraftKings has the Bears winning 8.5 in 2025. Jen, the Lions lost both their coordinators. Are you all over the over 10.5 wins?
All I can say, Lou, is I cannot believe the disrespect that the best league in the NFL from last season is getting. I mean, that's some sad stuff there. I do think that 10.5 is probably realistic for the Lions, but I do see them going over that. Probably the 11 win total, maybe 12. Certainly the schedule gets a whole lot tougher, and there is going to be a little bit of growing pains, I think, with 2 new coordinators. You can't avoid that. The way that they were rolling as a well-oiled machine for the first, for the last 2 seasons, really, I don't think that's going to repeat. But I do think that because they have the X factor, which is Dan Campbell and Jared Goff, they are going to be just fine. That offense is really going to be in great shape, and the way that Goff and John Morton collaborate, communicate, have worked together, I don't think there's going to be as much of a dip as people are expecting with the Lions offense. One thing we do have to keep an eye on, though, is with this offensive line, as it gets a little bit older, there are some questions, and that may be addressed in the draft as well with Brad Holmes, maybe going for some interior linemen, trying to patch up and add some depth. It'll be interesting to see how much longer guys like maybe Frank Ragnow will play, Taylor Decker. Those guys are getting up there, certainly, and that's going to be a question in the coming years. So they're going to need some depth on the offensive line to keep that offense as strong as it has been. But I firmly believe that the Lions are still going to be the best team in the NFC Central.
I'm with you.
North.
NFC North, by the way. Yeah, you're going way back. But I'm with you. And
the Norris division, let's just stick with that.
Yes, that's even better. We can't forget how many players the Lions lost to injury last year. It wasn't fair. All right, Pierre, Vikings drop off 5.5 wins. Man, that's the biggest in the league. Are they going to suffer through that type of drop off, you think?
I don't really see that significant of a drop-off. I think the number right there at 8.5 is put because there's so much uncertainty surrounding the quarterback position. Remember, we didn't see J.J. McCarthy at all in the regular season last year. We only saw him in one preseason game before he tore his meniscus, and we didn't see him after that. So there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding what this team is going to look like with J.J. McCarthy at the helm, assuming he is the starter going into next year. And you remember last year, Lou, the Vikings started without T.J. Hawkinson for the first 5 weeks. He was injured coming off the injured knee. They didn't have him. Some people are wondering whether or not Jordan Addison is going to be available in the first couple of weeks this year, depending on his legal situation out in Los Angeles. So it is a steep drop-off, in my opinion. I would take the over here on 8.5 because I believe when you look at the rest of this Vikings roster, there's a lot of good talent here. There's a lot of good talent. There's a lot of great coaching in place. So even though there's uncertainty at quarterback, I feel 8.5 is a little bit low for the Vikings.
All right, Lily, I'm going to bring you in here because you know how much I dislike the Packers. 9.5, I'm taking the under. They're not even hitting 9.5 this year.
Oh man, Lou, that's goodness. I hope the Packers prove you wrong. I'm going to go slightly over. I'm going to say 10. Listen. The Packers were a finger away from being 0-6 against their own division last year. That's got to change. The Packers know that. Matt LaFleur, the team, knows that. They have to be better against the Lions, Vikings, and the Bears. I think they will be. But when you look at their schedule, it's tough. I mean, their home opponents outside of the division, Eagles, Commanders, and the Ravens come to town. So that's a tough schedule right there just playing at Lambeau Field. So it's going to be an adjustment. But, I think Jordan Love, if he can avoid any sort of injuries early in the year that trickle down for the rest of the season, I think this is a team that carries over a lot of talent. So I'm going to go on the over there. I still think a 10-11 win season is feasible for Green Bay.
Of course you are. I'm not surprised to hear that. Even at 8.5 for the Bears, I'm taking the over. They won 5 games last year. We know how poor they played, even though they won that last game at Green Bay. But they blew 4 of their 12 losses, games that they could have won. And I get it. Could have, should have, doesn't really count. But they should have won more games than the 5 that they actually registered. And they have filled their glaring holes on the offensive and defensive lines. And now, finally, they can go into a draft and pick the best player available instead of being stuck trying to pick for position. We need to take our final timeout. How about Amon-Ra St. Brown? Wait till you see Amon-Ra with Kevin Hart. We will show you when we come back here on First and North.
Stroopstork is known for cheese, laundry, and bowling.
You gotta be kidding me.
Going Dutch, all new Thursdays on Fox.
They want you to know that they're aware of what you've done, so this is their way of showing you love.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, see, this is good. I'm not posing with you guys, okay? It's done. Thank you. Next season, what are the predictions?
We want to win a Super Bowl.
I know, but
nothing.
But we can't because the Eagles
You
are
just
going to
won
be in
one.
our way. That's what I wanted to hear.
Hopefully we play you guys week 1.
Oh, is that your wish?
It is.
Well, guess what? I'm going to make a call. You want us, you got us.
Mm-hmm.
You're welcome. And I'm sorry. I got in the tub. What do you want from me? Damn. Huh? You proud of yourself?
Jen, what are your thoughts?
It's epic. You know what? I think that a lot of people, just to touch on that little Philadelphia gauntlet there, I think a lot of people want to see September 4th, Thursday night, the season opener, the Lions on the road at Philadelphia. Everybody wants it, and I love that Amon-Ra is advocating for it.
Those guys put on a great performance. I love Kevin Hart, and I love Amon-Ra St. Brown when he's not playing the Bears. Great show as always, guys. For Jennifer, Lily, and Pierre, I'm Lou Canellis. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week right here on First and North.